My name is Rena Graves, 29 years old. The smell of garlic and rosemary chicken filled the small apartment that night, a smell that used to mean home. Tonight it just clung to the air like a memory that didn't know it was supposed to fade. I had spent hours trying to make everything perfect. The table was set for two, my sons already asleep in their room. I told myself this dinner would fix things, that if I played the right song, poured the right wine, smiled the right way, maybe Adam would look at me the way he used to. But deep down I already knew. The silence between us had grown too loud. We'd been together since high school, each other's first everything. Married for 6 years, divorced for 3 now. Our boys were 4 and 5, bright-eyed, asking about their dad less and less each passing month. Adam had been my entire world once, and somehow, in the middle of an ordinary evening, he'd decided he wanted to see what the rest of the world had to offer without us. I still remember the night he told me. The same kitchen, the same flickering light above the counter. He sat across from me and said almost casually, "I love you, Rena, but I love myself too, and I think I need to give myself a chance." At first I laughed, thinking it was a joke, but he didn't laugh back. He talked about being free, about exploring the world, about finding himself. All that vague, empty talk I'd only ever seen in travel blogs, written by men who didn't have 2 toddlers depending on them. I begged him to reconsider. I even offered something humiliating, that we could take a break, or even open the marriage, if that's what it took. I remember whispering it like confessing to a sin. He just shook his head. That's not fair to either of us. When he packed his bags the next morning, I could still smell the coffee I'd made for him. He didn't drink it. I followed him to the door, numb, holding our youngest's teddy bear in my hand because he'd forgotten it on the couch. The suitcase wheels squeaked across the tiles like an unwanted soundtrack to my collapse. "Adam," I said, voice trembling, "what about the kids?" He turned, smiling faintly, that distant, almost saintly smile people use when they are about to ruin your life, but want to look noble doing it. "They'll be fine," he said. "Leave them with someone you trust. Go travel, meet people live. You deserve to grow too." I stood there barefoot on the cold floor, staring at a man who had completely rewritten the rules of our life overnight. When the door clicked shut behind him, something inside me went silent. I didn't cry that day. Not yet. Instead, I walked into our bedroom. His side of the closet was half empty, a few shirts still on hangers, smelling faintly of cedarwood and betrayal. I sat on the bed and noticed his phone charger still plugged into the wall. The light on it blinked twice and went dark. That night, after putting the boys to bed, I wandered into the living room. His phone was still on the coffee table, locked, almost taunting me. I picked it up, thinking maybe there'd be a goodbye text, a reason something. The screen lit up. A notification banner slid down for half a second before disappearing. Vanguard Circle, new message. "We rise when we shed the weight." I didn't understand what it meant then. I just knew it made my stomach twist. I placed the phone back down like it was poison and went to wash my hands. For weeks after, I told myself he'd come back, that this was just a phase, a mistake, an identity crisis that would end the moment he realized how lonely freedom really was. But the days stretched, and the apartment began to sound different, quieter, smaller. Even the boys' laughter couldn't fill the space he'd left behind. When the divorce papers came, I didn't even fight. His parents handled the child support. He didn't want anything from the settlement. "I'm giving you everything," he'd written in one of the rare emails he sent. "That way you can live the life I couldn't." As if he was the victim. There was no fight, no scene. Just signatures on paper and a courier who called me ma'am like I'd aged 10 years overnight. Afterward, the only trace of Adam left in our home was a small photo pinned to the fridge, the 4 of us at the park. Our kids smeared with ice cream, Adam laughing behind his sunglasses. I couldn't bring myself to take it down, not yet. Some nights I'd catch myself whispering to that photo, asking, "Why wasn't this enough for you?" But the photo never answered. 3 months later, I noticed something else. The same text notification, Vanguard Circle, flashing on an old iPad Adam had left synced to our cloud account. It was a group chat messages buried under nicknames I didn't recognize. One line stood out before I deleted it all. "Congratulations, brother. You did it. You're free now." Free from what exactly? From me. From our sons. From the weight of responsibility he once called love. That night, for the first time since he'd left, I cried quietly with my hands pressed over my mouth so the boys wouldn't wake up. When morning came, I got up, brushed my hair, packed their lunches, and told myself something I didn't yet believe. "You're stronger than this." But even then, I couldn't shake the question, who were those people, and what exactly had they freed him from? The first few months after Adam left were a blur, paperwork exhaustion, and noise. People kept saying things like, "You're so strong," or "At least you're young, you'll find someone else." But none of them understood what it felt like to fold laundry alone at midnight and realize you'd started counting shirts instead of blessings. I didn't fight the divorce. I didn't have the energy to. The settlement came easy. He didn't want anything. He signed away property savings, even his share of the car. His parents handled the child support quietly, as if paying for silence. He got visitation rights, but he rarely used them. The first few times he insisted I drop the boys off at his parents' house so he wouldn't disrupt their environment. But the truth was simpler, he didn't want to see me. After the second visit, he stopped asking. I told myself it was better that way. No emotional roller coaster, no confusion for the kids. But some nights, when I was tucking them in, my younger son would look up and ask softly, "Mommy, is Daddy on vacation again?" I'd smile. "Yes, baby. He's just finding himself." I hated those words. Finding himself. As if the version of him who'd kissed me goodnight for 6 years was somehow lost. Work became my refuge. I started volunteering for extra shifts, taking projects others avoided. My manager once asked me if I was trying to prove something. I didn't answer because maybe I was. Maybe I wanted to prove that I could hold everything together with my own 2 hands, that I could build a home without him. I hired a nanny, saved every penny, and promised myself I wouldn't bring work home. When I was with my kids, I was with them. We built pillow forts, made burnt pancakes on Sundays, watched cartoons with popcorn in plastic bowls. The apartment started feeling alive again. Laughter echoed off the same walls that once heard sobs. And yet there were still cracks. Some nights I'd wake up at 3 a.m. from the sound of a door slamming in a dream, expecting to see him standing there, smirking like he used to after late-night gym sessions. But the only thing I ever saw was the faint reflection of myself in the hallway mirror. Tired eyes, hair tied up, wearing one of his old t-shirts I hadn't yet thrown away. That was the night I finally tossed it in the trash. A week later, Rachel came by, my oldest friend, someone who had always been too blunt for comfort. She arrived with takeout and that look that said, "You're not going to like what I'm about to tell you." We sat on the couch while my kids played with Lego blocks on the carpet. Rachel hesitated before speaking. "Rena, I think I found out what happened with Adam." I frowned. "What do you mean, what happened?" "He happened. He left." "No," she lowered her voice. "My cousin knows someone from Adam's new friend circle. They call themselves the Vanguard Circle." The name made my chest tighten. I remembered that exact phrase flashing on his phone. Rachel continued. "Apparently it's a group of 6 or 7 men who follow some kind of self-liberation philosophy. They believe relationships are a trap, that family is an illusion meant to chain men down. They made some kind of pact, no commitments, no kids, no attachments." I stared at her speechless. She added Adam was introduced to them by a coworker. They convinced him he'd never really lived, that he was owned by his responsibilities. A cold laugh escaped my throat. "So he abandoned us to join a cult of man-children." Rachel's eyes softened. "They're not calling it that. They think they're enlightened." I didn't respond. My brain couldn't process the absurdity. My husband, the man who used to tear up watching Pixar movies, had given up his family to impress strangers who thought love was a weakness. That night I stayed up rereading our old texts. Birthday wishes, grocery lists, small jokes. Somewhere between "pick up milk" and "love you," the man I married had vanished. In the days that followed, anger became a strange kind of fuel. I worked harder, slept less, and built my own rhythm. My parents helped with the boys when deadlines piled up. Even Adam's parents offered to babysit occasionally, though I knew it was guilt, not love. Still, I was grateful. By the second year after the divorce, things were finally steady. I'd been promoted. The boys started kindergarten. We had a system of balance. I could even smile again without it feeling forced. But peace, I learned, has a cruel habit of testing you. One Sunday morning, while cleaning out the storage closet, I found a box labeled Adam's Stuff. Inside were old photos, a hoodie, a few papers, and at the bottom, his old travel journal. Curiosity 1. I flipped through the pages. Halfway through on a page titled Manifest he'd written, "The first step to becoming limitless is to abandon your burdens. The second is to never look back." I slammed the notebook shut. Never look back. That line burned in my head all day. But here's the thing about running away, the world is round. If you go far enough, you eventually circle back to where you started. 3 years after Adam walked out that door, he did exactly that. One quiet Sunday evening, there was a knock. When I opened the door, the world went still. There he stood, the man who once swore he needed to find himself. Except now he looked like someone who'd been lost for far too long. His hair was shorter, his eyes sunken, and in his hands, a bouquet of red roses. He smiled through tears. "Rena," he said softly, voice trembling, "I'm home." For a long moment, I couldn't move. The air felt thick, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Adam stood there on my doorstep, clutching that bouquet of red roses like they could undo 3 years of silence. His eyes glistened, but there was something in them I couldn't read. Guilt, desperation, maybe both. Behind me, I could hear my sons laughing from the living room. That sound grounded me, pulled me back into the present. "Rena," he said again, voice cracking, "please, just let me talk." I didn't answer. I just stared at him. His clothes were neat but wrinkled, his shoes dusty. He looked small. This wasn't the man who'd once told me he needed to find freedom. This was someone who'd gone searching for heaven and gotten lost in hell. 3 years, I said quietly. You disappeared for 3 years, and now you just show up. He stepped forward, but I didn't move aside. "I've changed," he said. "I swear I missed you. I miss the boys. I just want to make things right." I laughed, the sharp kind of laugh that hurts your throat. Make things right. "You left us like luggage on the curb. You didn't even check if we were okay." "Rena." I was confused, he pleaded. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was wrong. I had to lose everything to realize. I slammed the door in his face before he could finish. The roses crushed against the wood with a dull sound, and for a second I thought I'd broken something in him or in myself. My sons ran to me, startled. "Mommy, who was that?" "Just a stranger," I whispered. My hands were shaking. I waited. I thought he'd leave, but he didn't. He stayed there, knocking softly, over and over, his voice muffled through the door. "Please, Rena, just listen. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want my family back." My pulse pounded. His family. Those words lit something inside me, rage that had been buried beneath 3 years of forced calm. I yanked the door open again, startling him. "Your family, no. You don't get to use that word anymore." He blinked, taken aback. "But the boys, they have me," I snapped. "They don't need a tourist dad who remembers them when it's convenient." He looked genuinely hurt, but I didn't care. "Rena, please," he said, lowering his voice. "I didn't know what I was doing back then. I thought they had the answers. But all it gave me was emptiness. I just want to come home." The mention of that group made my chest tighten. So he did mean the Vanguard Circle, the name I'd seen on his phone on that iPad. But I wasn't ready to talk about that yet. "Go home, Adam," I said coldly, "wherever that is now." He tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. "You made your choice. Now live with it." And I slammed the door a second time. The next few minutes were a blur of muffled pleading and then silence. Eventually, I heard the elevator ding. He was gone. I stood there for a long time, hands still gripping the doorknob. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it wanted to break free. Then, against my better judgment, I peeked through the peephole. The bouquet of roses lay on the hallway floor. One of them had snapped at the stem. I don't know why, but I started crying. Not for him. For the version of myself who had once believed in him. That night, I called my lawyer. She picked up after the second ring. "I need to update my custody terms," I said. My voice sounded steady, but my hands were trembling. "What happened?" she asked. "He came back." The silence on the other end said everything. "Okay," she finally replied. "We'll file for a restriction on visitation until we reassess his stability." After that call, I dialed my parents. My mother's voice came first, worried, sharp. "Did he show up drunk?" "No, just pathetic." My father sighed in the background. "You did the right thing, Rena. Don't let him guilt you. He made his bed." But guilt was tricky. Even when you know you're right, it lingers like smoke. Later that night, as I put the boys to sleep, my older son looked up and said, "Mom, I thought I saw Daddy today." I froze. "You did, sweetheart. He came to say hello." "Is he staying?" My throat closed. "No, baby, he's not staying." He nodded, satisfied with that simple answer. Kids can forgive what adults can't. When the apartment finally went quiet, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat by the window. The city lights blinked faintly below, indifferent to my little storm. My phone buzzed, a call from Rachel. I let it ring out once before answering. "You're not going to believe this," she said immediately. "My cousin just called me." I frowned. "What cousin?" "The same one who told me about the Vanguard Circle years ago. He said Adam texted that group chat before showing up at your place." A cold chill ran through me. What did he say? He told them he was done, that they were all hypocrites for settling down after preaching freedom. He said they betrayed him. Apparently, he'd been fighting with them for weeks. And today, before he came to your door, he told them he was going back to fix his mistake. I stared out the window. So this wasn't about love. It was about losing his place with them. Rachel hesitated. Maybe both. But Rena, my cousin, said something else. They mocked him in the chat, called him desperate, said he'd crawled back to the cage. Something inside me went still. I realized then that Adam hadn't come back out of love. He came back because he had nowhere else left to go. I ended the call with Rachel and sat there in silence, the city hum faint in the distance. I thought I'd feel anger, but instead I felt something worse, pity. Not for him, for the part of me that still wanted to understand why. The next morning, I packed away the crushed roses and threw them in the trash chute. The scent of them lingered in my hands long after. 3 years ago, he'd walked out the door saying he wanted to find himself. Now he was lost again, and this time I wasn't going to be the map. 3 days passed after Adam's visit. I thought that would be it, that he'd fade back into whatever life he'd made for himself. But then Rachel showed up again, clutching her phone like it was evidence. Rena, she said breathlessly, you need to hear this. We sat at the kitchen table. My kids were watching cartoons in the other room, laughter echoing faintly through the apartment, a strange contrast to the cold tension between us. Rachel unlocked her phone and opened a voice note. My cousin sent me this, she said. He was part of the group chat when Adam exploded at them. She pressed play. The audio was grainy, but I could still make out fragments, Adam's voice, sharp and desperate. You told me I'd be free. You told me to let them go, and now look at you. Every single one of you has a girlfriend or a fiancé. You lied to me. Then another male voice, calm and almost mocking. We didn't make you do anything, Adam. You left because you wanted to. You were easy. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until the clip ended. Rachel's eyes were wide. He's been melting down for weeks. Apparently the group started splintering. Most of the guys are in relationships now. One's even married. Adam's the only one still living like it's some sacred code. So he came back because he ran out of people to impress, I muttered. Rachel hesitated, or because he realized he's the last fool standing. I didn't answer. I just stared at the table. For the first time, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, but understanding. The kind that doesn't heal, only clarifies. That night, after I put the boys to bed, I sat at my desk and reread the custody documents. I'd already asked my lawyer to file for restricted visitation, but I wanted more. I wanted to make sure Adam couldn't just show up again whenever his new life fell apart. Before I closed the folder, I noticed something, an old photo tucked between the pages. It was of us years ago at the beach. Adam's arm around my shoulder, both of us laughing, sunburned and young. I stared at the picture for a long time, then slipped it into a drawer and shut it with a quiet click. I was done looking back. The next afternoon, Rachel's cousin Daniel called me directly. His voice was uneasy. Rena, I know you don't owe me anything, but I thought you should know the whole story. I hesitated, then said, go on. He sighed. That group, the Vanguard Circle, it started as a men's support thing. A coworker of mine, Mark, founded it after his divorce. It was supposed to help guys rediscover their identity, talk about loneliness, that kind of thing. But it got twisted. They started feeding each other this poison that family is weakness, that love kills ambition. Adam joined when he was feeling stuck at work. He wanted to belong to something. I closed my eyes. Of course. Adam had always been the kind of man who needed approval first from his parents, then from me. Daniel continued. At first he just listened. Then one night, after too many drinks, they told him he was the purest example of conformity. Said he'd never be great until he cut ties. I think that broke something in him. The next week, he filed for divorce. My chest tightened. You're saying they manipulated him? Yes, he said. But he let them. That's the thing, they didn't have to try very hard. He wanted to feel special. I didn't know what to say. Daniel's voice softened. After he left you, they celebrated. They called it a rebirth. But eventually they moved on. They dated, they settled down, some even had kids. Adam couldn't handle it. He kept trying to prove he was still loyal to the code. Until last month, when he realized he was the only one left living by rules no one cared about anymore. So he came crawling back, I whispered. Daniel hesitated. He's been crashing at a friend's place. No job, no money. He told them he was going to fix his mistake, but I think he just wanted someone to forgive him. The conversation ended with a hollow thank you. I hung up, feeling drained, my mind replaying every word. Later that night, I walked into my son's room. They were asleep, small, peaceful, tangled in their blankets. I watched them breathe and felt something heavy lift inside me. I didn't want them to grow up wondering if they were the reason their father left. I didn't want them to inherit his confusion. The next morning, I emailed my lawyer again. Proceed with full custody modification. No unsupervised visitation. Ever. Then I sat back and looked around the apartment, the toys, the artwork on the walls, the life I'd built piece by piece. For the first time in years, the silence felt like peace, not absence. But peace never lasts long. 2 nights later, I came home to find an envelope slipped under my door, no name on it. Inside was a single piece of paper, a handwritten note in Adam's messy scrawl. I'm sorry for everything. I can't fix what I broke. Please tell the boys I tried. There was no address, no number, no signature. Just a train ticket stub to a city 3 hours away, the same city where Daniel said the group used to meet. For a brief, dangerous second, I almost called him. But then I thought about the boys, their laughter, their stability, their safety, and I tore the letter in half. When Rachel came by the next day, I handed her the pieces. If he wants to be found, I said he'll have to find himself first. She nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. Some people break your heart once. Others do it in installments over years until you learn to stop answering the door. I'd finally learned. The courthouse smelled faintly of dust and old coffee, the kind of place where lives were rewritten quietly without ceremony. I sat on a wooden bench outside courtroom 2B, my lawyer beside me, her briefcase balanced neatly on her knees. Across the hall sat Adam, his head down. Suit slightly too big, looking like a man who'd borrowed someone else's confidence for the day. When he looked up, our eyes met for the first time since that night on my doorstep. His lips moved like he wanted to smile, but the effort died halfway. I turned away. The bailiff called our names. The sound echoed in my chest. Inside the courtroom was cold and bright. Every sound, papers, shifting pens, clicking, seemed magnified. My hands were sweating even though I told myself I had nothing to fear. This wasn't a fight over love. It was a fight over safety. My lawyer began with precision, a timeline documented, absence missed visitations, and a clear case for supervised custody. She spoke calmly, never raising her voice. I watched her words slice through the air like clean, sharp glass. When it was Adam's turn, he stood slowly holding a folded letter. His voice was soft, rehearsed, almost gentle. I made mistakes, he said, but I never stopped loving my family. I was lost. I thought I needed to experience life before I could appreciate it. I understand now how wrong that was. He looked at me, then eyes red. Rena, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but please, let me at least try to be their father again. The judge's expression didn't change. He adjusted his glasses and asked the standard questions. Income, housing, mental stability, employment. That last one hung in the air too long. Adam's voice broke slightly when he said, I'm between jobs right now. Between lives, more like. Then the judge asked me to speak. I stood palms damp, heart steady. Your Honor, I began for 3 years. I raised our children alone. He didn't call, didn't visit, didn't ask if we were eating or sick or safe. He walked away to find himself, and now that he's found nothing, he wants to come home. But home isn't a place you get to visit when it's convenient. It's something you build, and he demolished it with both hands. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I just spoke the truth. The courtroom fell silent. When the judge finally spoke, his words came like slow thunder. Mr. Graves, based on the evidence presented, and the extended absence visitation rights will remain limited to supervised sessions. Custody remains solely with the mother. You may reapply for modification after demonstrating consistent responsibility for a minimum of 12 months. Adam's shoulders slumped. His lawyer whispered something, but he barely nodded. The gavel struck once. Final. Afterward, as we stepped into the hallway, Adam caught up to me. Rena, please. Just listen for 1 minute. I didn't want to, but something, maybe closure, maybe habit, made me stop. I'm sorry, he said. For all of it. You were right about the group. They didn't care. I ruined everything because I thought they saw something in me. And now I can't even look at myself. I stared at him. Adam, you didn't lose us because of them. You lost us because you believed them. He looked like he wanted to argue but didn't. As I turned to leave, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. This was part of why I came back. I hesitated, then took it. It was a printout of a group chat messages from the Vanguard circle. My eyes scanned the screen. Mark Adams losing it. He's begging to come back to his wife. Liam classic. Every experiment fails eventually. Ryan. Maybe record it. Could make a great promo for the next meetup. Mark. We rise when we shed the weak. Below that, a final message from Adam. You were never free. You were just lonely. I felt my chest tighten. Not because I pitied him, but because I finally saw the full picture. He hadn't come back out of convenience. He'd come back out of collapse. I folded the paper and handed it back. Keep it. You'll need it more than I will. He looked confused. For what? For remembering what you threw away. I walked past him without another word. Outside, my parents were waiting with the boys. My mother's hand squeezed mine when she saw my face. How did it go? It's over, I said simply. My father looked at Adam, who lingered near the courthouse steps. He still doesn't know what he lost, does he? No, I said, and maybe that's his punishment. As we walked toward the car, my older son tugged my hand. Mom, is Daddy going to live with us now? I knelt to his level, brushed his hair from his forehead, and said softly, No, sweetheart, but he's allowed to visit with me there. He thought about that for a moment, then nodded. Okay, maybe next time we can show him my new drawing. I smiled faintly. Maybe. But inside I knew I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. That night after I put the kids to bed, I sat by the window again. The city hummed beneath me, a quiet, forgiving noise. I opened my laptop to answer work emails, but something caught my eye. A message request in my inbox from an unfamiliar address. Subject, you don't know me, but I used to be one of them. The email was short. Rena, my name is Ryan. I left the Vanguard Circle last year. I want to apologize. We thought we were changing lives, but we were destroying them. Adam isn't the only one who lost everything. If you ever want to know the truth about what really happened, I can tell you. I stared at the message for a long time before closing my laptop. I didn't need the truth. I'd already lived it. But I had a feeling the story wasn't done with me yet. 6 months passed. The season changed, and with it, something inside me softened, not toward Adam, but toward life itself. The boys were thriving. My older one had started drawing superheroes with capes too long for their bodies, and the younger could finally ride his bike without training wheels. We celebrated every small victory with ice cream and laughter, the kind that shakes the walls and makes the neighbors smile. Work was good too. I'd been promoted again. My manager said it was for resilience under pressure, though. I knew it was because I'd learned how to work through pain, like it was just another deadline. I'd stopped checking social media, stopped wondering if Adam had tried to call again. For the first time in years, my mind wasn't orbiting someone else's absence. But peace has a strange way of warning you when it's about to end. One Friday afternoon, I got a call from Rachel. You're not going to believe what I just heard, she said, breathless, as always. I sighed, stirring sugar into my coffee. If this is about Adam, I'm hanging up. She hesitated. It is, but you'll want to hear this. Daniel said that Vanguard Circle, it's gone, like completely dismantled. Their founder, Mark, is under investigation for fraud and emotional exploitation. Apparently, he was taking money from members, including Adam. I froze. Money. Thousands, she said. Trips, workshops, private retreats, all sold as transformational journeys. Adam lost everything trying to stay in their good graces. The spoon clinked against the mug, so he didn't just give up his family, he paid for it. Pretty much, Rachel replied quietly. And there's more. Daniel said Adam's been working at a car wash outside the city, just trying to survive. I didn't say anything for a long time. I should have felt vindicated poetic justice and all that, but instead a dull sadness spread through me. He'd traded a family for philosophy and the philosophy for nothing. Later that night, after the kids went to bed, I sat by the window again, the same spot where I'd watched the city glow through tears months ago. I wondered if Adam ever sat somewhere like this thinking about us, about the door I'd closed. Then, as if the universe heard the thought, there was a quiet knock. It wasn't him, of course not. When I opened the door, a courier handed me a small brown envelope with no return address, my name written in Adam's handwriting. Inside was a folded letter and a photograph. The photo was old, the four of us at the park. Adam lifting our youngest into the air. The same one that had once hung on the fridge, only now there was something scribbled on the back in black ink. For what it's worth, I finally found myself just too late to find us. I unfolded the letter next. It was short. Rena, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve to be seen as human after what I did. But I want you to know I quit the circle. I turned over everything I knew about them to the police. I didn't do it for redemption. I did it so nobody else loses what I lost. I won't come back again. I just needed to thank you for raising them right. Tell the boys I love them. Adam. My hands trembled slightly as I folded it back up. I sat there for a while, the city lights flickering across the paper. Somewhere deep down I felt something loosen, not forgiveness, but release. The anger that had lived in my ribs for years finally exhaled. The next morning, I told Rachel about the letter. She smiled softly. Maybe that's the closest thing to closure you'll get. Maybe, I said. But closure isn't the point anymore. Peace is. Weeks passed. The letter stayed tucked away in a drawer I rarely opened. Life moved on birthday parties, late-night homework, weekend markets. The kids stopped asking about their father as often, though sometimes they'd mention him like a story they'd half remembered from a dream. One night, while clearing the fridge, I found that old beach photo again, the one I thought I'd thrown away. I stared at it for a long time at the younger versions of us who believed forever was simple. I didn't cry. I just placed it in a new frame, not because I missed him, but because it was part of our story, part of who I was. As I turned off the kitchen light, something caught my eye outside the window. Across the street, a figure stood near the corner lamppost, hands in his pockets, head slightly bowed. For a second, my heart stuttered. Then the man looked up, and I realized it wasn't Adam, just someone with the same quiet, tired posture. Still, I whispered to the glass, "Wherever you are, I hope you're better now." The next morning, I found one more envelope in the mailbox. No name, just a note inside. "He's helping people now, at a shelter for fathers who lost custody. Thought you should know." No signature, but I knew it was from Daniel. I smiled faintly, folded the note, and slid it into the drawer beside Adam's last letter. Maybe some stories don't end in forgiveness or revenge. Maybe they just fade, leaving behind small, imperfect truths. And as I watched my sons run around the living room laughing, their voices echoing through the home I built from the ashes of everything I lost, I finally understood something. Freedom isn't leaving. Freedom is staying even when it hurts and building something beautiful anyway.